Hi everybody, welcome back to the Aurora Life channel. My name is Stuart Tan, and I just wanted to highlight something that I was reflecting about with regard to a fear of how to. So it seems like the world's really interested in, the 7 steps of how to accomplish success, the 3 approaches to enlightenment, all that kind of stuff. The problem I feel is that why we're so enamored with how to instructions is not because we don't know how to, but rather we're seeking validation from the outside. How do I meditate? I have to follow these 7 steps. Well, the reflection came to me when I was exploring my interests in woodworking, in gemstone faceting, and these are completely different from how I used to operate. I'm a guy with ideas. I'm a guy who knows how to read books, and I know how to dive into statistical numbers and stuff like that with regard to psychological studies. But when it came to the real application of physical and material things, even changing a light bulb was difficult for me. Now, I know that sounds a little bit strange to those of you who may have been changing light bulbs every day of your life, or that you have no restrictions, you kind of like explore. Yeah, you might get a little bit of electrical shock once in a while, and hopefully you survive it. But the truth is that if we're not exposed, then we won't have a failing forward mentality. We won't have a moving into that field or that art in order for us to get into a better way of viewing life, a better way of improving. So I'll give you a very simple example. We are so I'll give you a very simple example. I typically like to do my workouts at home, and I like to make sure that I've got enough space. Unfortunately, because I've been accumulating power tools, I've been accumulating faceting material and things like that, it's become a little bit difficult for me to have my space and really feel comfortable in it. So I decided to do a lot of clearing. I decided to create a constraint around which I will now establish a far more limited space for myself and use that as a constraint so that I can work utilizing surfaces. So I started hacking that place, and I found that it was possible to include all of these things in a very, very small and tight space, just simply by innovating the way we store things. And storage, as far as we know, I'm sure Marie Kondo has got many ideas of how to get rid of stuff. I want to be able to retain stuff, but in a limited environment so that I keep using it and I don't lose track of it. So I started to do that, and in order for me to know how to, I had to go to material and figure out how people living in smaller spaces were able to have a circular saw, have a jigsaw, have a table saw, and still be able to utilize all of the space within that environment. And so I started to think, hey, I could do that too. Now, it takes a little bit of a spark of inspiration to start to improve your circumstances. Some people call this Kaizen, the gradual and slow improvement over a course of time actually improves you. But in my opinion, I think it's extremely important for you to begin to start doing so that you can improve. It's not like you have all the information and then you start doing stuff. I think the idea of working with perfection is erroneous. And in fact, if you want to be able to get to much, much better levels of excellence, you most definitely need to make errors. So therein lies the question of mindset. Are we of the appropriate mindset in order for us to maximize what we are already given? That is, the ability to learn as we do, rather than I need to know. Think about artificial intelligence for a moment. Artificial intelligence tells us that we are going to input stuff into a computer, but the computer is going to learn on its own. In order for us to include machine learning, we need to be able to have parameters in order for the machine to learn. Otherwise, we're going to have a machine that just keeps storing, just keeps inputting information without really taking action on that information. So there are some parameters by which we operate, and through my own personal reflection, I found that one of the things that I love doing is initiating rather than completing. So it took a long time for me to really get to the stage of saying like, okay, I'm going to do a video, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to complete it, and then I'm going to store it on YouTube and just keep going at it. And while there are some videos that many of you may not even have seen, because you might actually be seeing this several years in the future, but the idea is that I want to be able to build up a discipline to start, continue, and then stop. and know when I've completed something. Pretty much like exercise. Now, in order for us to be able to build a habit, you and I both know that this needs to be done. You need to know how to start, sustain that habit, and then bring it to a close. And then restart it again, maybe every day, so that it becomes a habit. It becomes something that is natural to you. So when you think about things that you're worried about, like for example, oh, this is a completely new area and I need to study about it. Well, go study about it. Take a course, get a coach, whatever it takes. But set a deadline for yourself to really implement. For example, you may have learned something about online marketing. Go out there and do it. You may have discovered something about, I don't know, psychometrics and leadership. Don't just wait for the opportunity to fall on your lap, rather go and implement it. So I hope that this has been beneficial. It's kind of like a reminder. I think you know about it, but if you're keeping me on a playlist on a regular basis, your personal mastery depends on it. Your spiritual mastery depends on it. Your emotional intelligence depends on it. To be able to constantly dive into areas which you're not familiar with and then continue to keep doing it on a day-to-day basis. Physical, emotionally, psychologically, to get yourself prepared, to get the right kind of information inside your head so that you can get started. So, in my own personal explorations, I like to dive into areas which pique my interest, but I still find myself struggling in certain areas in order to bring things to a close because that's what I've been brought up with. My personality is based off the MBTI. I am a perception-oriented individual, and as a result, I tend to go with the flow. However, I've seen some pros and cons, and I'm constantly changing the J, the judgment side of the equation in the MBTI, so that I can seek a polar opposite improvement of myself. If you haven't watched my video on the shadow, you'll understand that chasing after something that's completely different than you and taking a look at the evil or bad side of you and seeing how you can extract value out of that, that's also going to be a marriage between two extreme ends, two parts of your dichotomy in order for you to become a better and better individual on a day-to-day basis. You'll have more empathy with other people around you, and of course, you'll come to realize that your weaknesses or your blind spots can get covered as a result of chasing after something that you deem to be, no, not so comfortable, something that you've doubted you were able to do, but you pursued it anyway. Many people have done that, and I encourage you to go ahead and do that as well. So if you want to find out a little bit more about the MBTI, go to the link that I'm providing at the link description down below. And if you want to find out a little bit more about how you can get coached in order to get out of inertia and get started and complete something and then be able to pat yourself on the back because you've done a good job, then it all goes into habituation. Go back to some of my videos, watch those with regard to creating a habit for yourself on a regular basis. So if you like this, give it a thumbs up, like it, share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. So, did you learn anything from that video? If you did, just give it a thumbs up and then click on the subscribe button and hit the notifications icon so that you and I will continue to stay in touch and I can provide you with updates whenever we have new videos.